This Easter, I propose that instead of leaving Mark behind during the Mark year and jumping into the Gospel of John for the Easter season, that we pursue stories of people who rise up throughout the Gospel of Mark. Mark has the notoriously open-ended ending of the resurrection story, but I think that there's all these stories throughout the gospel where Jesus calls people, heals people, transforms people, and they rise up to serve him. I believe that Mark was performed as a baptismal commencement speech, and that each of these risings helps us to understand a little something about what it means to die and rise with Jesus in our baptism. So the first one I have chosen doesn't appear anywhere else in the Mark year, and it's the call of Levi. A few things that I would have you note. I'll be doing a little bit of shtick where he's called and he's talking to me. Image that appears in there, and I will be drawing upon, kind of inspired by a little bit that Max McLean does in his performance of the Gospel of Mark. So I want to give him credit for inspiring this, although I move it in some different directions. And then I want to emphasize that physicality makes this repetition of people rising up more clear. And so as we tell it, I want to make sure that people see him rising up, not only hear that word and just kind of miss it as it goes by. Finally, I have opted for Jesus, who's a little bit sarcastic when challenged about the friends he has chosen. And so I think you'll see that. So this is from Mark, the 2nd chapter. And Jesus went beside the sea, and he was preaching, and huge crowds again came to him. And passing by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at a tax booth. Jesus said to him, "Follow me." And Levi rose and followed him. And so it is, Jesus was reclining to eat in the house of Levi. And there were many tax collectors and sinners with him, well, because there were many of them and they were following him. Now when the scribes of the Pharisees, saw that he was eating with sinners, tax collectors, they came and asked his disciples, "Why is he eating with sinners and tax collectors?" And Jesus, knowing this, said to them, "Those who are well have no need of a healer. Those who are sick do. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." The Gospel of our Lord. One other little thought I'll leave you with as you're engaging in church dynamics, preparing for this sermon. It's fascinating in Mark 2 that there's this constant refrain where people have issues with somebody and they talk to someone else. So in this case, the scribes of the Pharisees are concerned about what Jesus is doing, but they talk to his disciples. In the next story, they get that within the sequence of Mark's gospel, they're concerned about his disciples not fasting, and instead of talking to them, they talk to Jesus. And then finally, when they're going through the grain fields and the disciples are, in the Pharisees' eyes, violating Sabbath laws, again, they talk not to the disciples, but to Jesus. So this practice of triangulating, of talking to someone else when you have an issue with another, is not new in the church. It apparently goes way back to the beginning. I hope you will join me in this idea of sticking with Mark throughout the resurrection season. Next week, we'll look at the story of the man who was lowered down into the house, was paralyzed, and whom Jesus forgives, and then raises up, and he walks home. Thank you so much for joining me.